Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, look closely at the evidence, and really pull out what matters for you. Today, we're diving into something that's caused a lot of talk, a lot of debate, maybe some confusion too, especially in hip-hop circles. The question is, was 21 Savage cooperating with authorities? And look, this isn't just about a famous person. It's a really fascinating look at how things like immigration law, the criminal justice system, and public perception all collide, especially when legal stuff meets cultural ideas. So yeah, we're taking a deep dive into the pretty surprising legal story of Shayab and Abraham Joseph, who you know as 21 Savage. We've got quite a few sources here, and we're going to use them to unpack what cooperation actually means when, like, the legal books say one thing and the cultural codes say another.
Exactly. Our mission today really is to lay out the facts as we know them from the documents, surrounding his immigration issues and his criminal cases. We need to explore these different takes on cooperation and figure out why his journey, his specific path, stirred up so much public reaction, so much speculation. We want to help you, the listener, sort out what's actually documented versus what's just, guesswork. It's a really compelling story. Glad we're getting into it.
Absolutely. And let's start with what most people knew or thought they knew. 21 Savage, right? He blew up, became this huge figure representing Atlanta, that raw, authentic sound. His music definitely struck a chord, painting these really vivid pictures. His rise felt pretty organic. Mixtapes started getting buzzers around 2015. Then 2016, 2017, those big singles hit, and boom, he's mainstream. Not just some local guy anymore. He was like national, global even.
Yeah, a major artist.
But then things took a really sharp turn. And this is where it gets really interesting for our discussion. February 2019, he gets detained by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And right then, ICE drops this bombshell that just floored so many fans. People who assumed he was, Atlanta born and raised. Turns out, nope, British citizen.
Born in London, 1992.
Exactly. Our sources confirm he came to the U.S. totally legally with his mom when he was 7, back in '99. But the visa ran out later on, so he ended up undocumented for a big chunk of his youth.
Wow.
Yeah, it completely flipped the script on his whole origin story, caught everyone totally off guard.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it, how fast a public story can build up and then just get shattered by, legal facts. This case really throws that into sharp relief. And ICE, back in 2019 when they arrested him, they weren't just talking immigration. They made a point of saying he also had these unresolved criminal things happening in Georgia, which just added another layer of complexity right from the start.
Right. Two things at once.
Yeah, immigration and criminal. That really set the stage for everything that followed, all the debate.
And those Georgia criminal issues are, a massive reason why this whole thing got so tangled. Let's dig into that side now. So fast forward to September 2021. This is over 2 years after the ICE arrest. He turns himself in, briefly, to the authorities in DeKalb County, Georgia. And these charges weren't minor. They came directly from that night back in 2019 when ICE picked him up. We're talking possession of a Schedule II controlled substance.
So serious stuff like opioids, maybe certain stimulants.
Right, and possession of a firearm, both felonies. Pretty serious allegations on the table.
Definitely.
But here's the thing that really caught people's attention, sparked a lot of the talk. He bonds out almost immediately, like within minutes. And crucially, as far as any public records show, up to today, he hasn't served any time in jail or prison for those felony charges.
No custodial sentence.
None of it's public anyway. He hasn't faced incarceration for those specific counts.
And that definitely raises eyebrows, especially if you know anything about how the system usually works. Legally speaking, think about it. A regular U.S. citizen facing similar drug and gun charges, they likely be looking at significant jail time. Or at the very least, some tough plea bargaining, maybe giving something up, possibly even a prison sentence, depending on the details, their record.
Sure.
So the fact that 21 Savage didn't serve time for these charges, to some people that looked like, maybe he got some kind of benefit, maybe from cooperation. It didn't seem like the typical outcome for charges that serious. It certainly added fuel to the speculation fire.
That's a really key point. And then there's this other layer tied to his immigration status that came out. His lawyers had actually filed for something called a U visa for him way back in 2017. That's well before the big ICE arrest in 2019.
Right, that timing is important.
Okay, so the U visa, I think maybe a lot of listeners aren't super familiar with this. It's really important for understanding his legal path, though. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. It's a specific type of immigration relief, the U visa. It's meant for victims of certain crimes who've suffered, serious harm, physical or mental. But And here's the critical part for this discussion. To get it, the victim usually has to agree to be helpful to law enforcement.
Helpful how?
Helpful in investigating or prosecuting the crime they were a victim of.
Yeah.
It's not just about being a victim, it's about actively assisting the legal process somehow. It's a way for people who are vulnerable, often undocumented, to get legal status if they help bring criminals to justice for what happened to them.
Okay, got it. So connecting that back to 21 Savage, the sources say the crime that qualified him was that shooting back in 2013. A really traumatic thing. He was wounded, and his best friend was killed.
Terrible event.
So the law says to get that U visa, you need certification from the police or prosecutors, saying that the victim, in this case him, did cooperate.
Yes, that certification is key.
And you can see how this is where things get blurry for the public, right?
Right.
Because that word cooperate, even though it's built into the visa rules for victims, some people hear that and immediately think, ah, that's telling. That's the cooperation they were talking about.
It muddies the waters perception-wise.
Right. And then, fast forward again to 2023, his lawyers announce he got approved for lawful permanent residency, he got his green card, and the immigration case against him terminated.
Yeah.
Done.
A huge outcome for him.
Which brings us right back full circle to the core question we started with. This whole deep dive is about this. Does getting that green card, especially combined with not doing jail time for those Georgia charges,
Yeah.
does that add up to snitching? Or is it just, someone using the legal options that were available to them under the law?
Well, legally speaking, from a strict legal definition point of view, the U visa cooperation is very specific. It is not the same as, say, testifying against your buddies in some unrelated drug case. That's often what people mean by snitching or being an informant.
Right, the street definition.
Exactly. The U visa cooperation is as a crime victim. Helping with the case about the crime committed against you, immigration law clearly recognizes that distinction. So, legally, him getting the visa and then the green card, it fits within the established rules and protections available to any qualifying applicant. It doesn't automatically mean there was some secret backroom deal just for him involving other cases.
But, and this is the big but, where the culture clash happens in hip-hop culture, in that sort of street code mindset, any kind of collaboration with law enforcement, it doesn't matter what the legal paperwork calls it, it can easily be seen as breaking that unwritten rule, the code of silence.
Absolutely.
And becomes less about the fine print of the law and more about the perception, the optics, the unspoken rules of that world. Cooperating as a victim might still look like real cooperation.
And that's precisely where you see this massive gap in perception. Critics jump on it. They say, look, you've got tons of other undocumented folks getting detained, getting deported fast, but 21 Savage, after all that public drama with ICE, he ends up with a green card. And then you add in the fact that those Georgia drug and gun charges just didn't lead to jail time. That's a big question mark for a lot of people. They look at that gap and think, okay, there must have been some kind of deal we don't know about. It strengthens that whole telling narrative for them.
Even if there's no public proof.
Even if there's no public proof, it just shows how differently the same set of facts can be read depending on whether you're looking through a legal lens or a cultural one.
So, okay, let's try to pull this all together. For you, listening to this, trying to make sense of this really complex picture, you've got legal terms clashing with cultural ideas, all wrapped up in a whole lot of public speculation. What's the bottom line here?
I think the main takeaway has to be this. The evidence that's actually public, the stuff we can point to, it does not prove that 21 Savage cooperated in that broader sense, like being an informant against others in different cases. What is documented, what is public, is that he applied for a U visa years ago. He got the required certification saying he cooperated as a victim, and eventually he got his green card.
Which is a standard legal process.
Exactly. Legally, it's consistent with the immigration system's rules for people in his situation. It doesn't automatically imply some unique secret bargain just for him. It's a path available under the law.
But that lingering question, the one that keeps the conversation going, it definitely remains, doesn't it? If a regular U.S. citizen born here faced those same serious drug and weapon charges, they probably would do time, right?
It's highly likely, yes.
So does 21 Savage walking free from those charges mean he just had really smart lawyers who used the system effectively, using pathways legally open to him? Or does it raise those more uncomfortable questions about maybe celebrity status playing a role? Or maybe some kind of cooperation that just hasn't come to light publicly?
That's the ambiguity.
Yeah. This case really shows how a totally legitimate legal process can still end up looking suspicious when viewed through a different cultural
It
framework.
was a perfect example.
Ultimately, his whole situation really highlights how these very specific legal terms, like victim cooperation for a U visa, can get totally tangled up and blurred when they hit the wider culture and its narratives about telling or snitching. It just shows a massive disconnect sometimes between how the legal world defines things and how society interprets them.
Exactly. And look, until some definitive proof comes out, like court documents we haven't seen or direct testimony saying otherwise, the facts we do have only really support speculation about any cooperation beyond what the U visa required, which leaves everyone else to just keep debating. Was justice served here, whatever that means to them, or was some kind of quiet arrangement made behind the scenes? It really makes you think about how much public perception drives the narrative, sometimes more than the legal details.
So for you, listening at home, this isn't just a story about one rapper's legal troubles. It's a really stark example, isn't it? It shows how easily a legal process, one designed with specific aims like protecting victims, can get twisted or reframed by public opinion and these deeply rooted cultural ideas. It kind of challenges all of us, I think, to look critically at the stories we consume. Are we reacting based on the documented facts? Or are we maybe leaning more on powerful but perhaps simplified narratives? Definitely something to chew on as you go about your day and process the information flying around out there.